Now 4 o'clock, we will open our March 15th Town Council meeting. Brian, if you'll lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We will start the evening with public comment. If you wish to speak, if you could come up to the podium, state your name and address, and please try and keep your comments to 5 minutes if you could.
Yes, I'll try to keep my comments to 5 minutes. And for those in the room who question this is a shillelagh, and it's about 250 years old. It's a family heirloom.
Please keep your distance with the shillelagh.
A shillelagh actually is a war club. I won't get into that after the Battle of Culloden, but anybody interested in the history of shillelaghs, I will tell them. And yes, Yoda had a shillelagh in Star Wars. My name is John Sakon. I have moved back to the town of Farmington. I'm happy to be back in the town of Farmington. I lived in the town of Farmington in the 80s. I was once on the Republican Town Committee. I moved from Farmington to Avon. I considered that a lateral move, and I lived in Avon for the next 22 years. I moved to the west side of the river. I've come back. I would like to speak to you about the 1928 committee, the 1928 building, and why you should not do it, and why it will be disastrous for the town. I'm going to lay out my credentials very quickly. I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I have a triple major in poli-sci, finance, and organizational management. I studied poli-sci at the Fels Institute of Government at a PhD program. And I'm going to cite 3 authorities upon which you should not do the 1928 building. I will cite Olson's Logic of Collective Action, Downs' seminal work on inside bureaucracy, and Price's Law. Okay. What Downs said in Inside Bureaucracy is understand that bureaucracy is a separate organization that only serves to serve its master, which is its task, but it's separate from its task. And he cites Olson's Logic Collective Action that basically says people are acting in their own self-interest. They're looking to do the minimum amount of work for the greatest amount of pay. Okay? And this is the basic things that happen within organizations. Organizations have a habit of growing. They seek to grow, independent of their charge. Okay? We know that a water company that services 1,000 people is going to have a manager, a secretary, and the people who work in the field. That's what you call a closed bureaucracy. The problem is government is not a closed bureaucracy. Government has a habit of growing. And there's only 2 ways to control growth, according to Downs' Inside Bureaucracy. You control growth one of 2 ways. You reduce its budget, or you reduce the amount of space it occupies. This rule was adopted by a man named Walton. Walton understood and read Downs' theory of bureaucracy. And Sam Walton ran his huge corporation out of his house. And when he got too big for his house, he moved out, built himself a bigger house, and kept the corporate offices in the old house. Because he understood Price's Law. Price's Law is that the inverse of the square root of the number of people who work for the organization are doing 50% of the work in the organization. That means if you have 100 people in the organization, 10 people are producing 50% to your bottom line. If you have 200 people in the organization, that doesn't go to 20, it goes to 14. It's the square root. Because bureaucracies grow exponentially and the productivity grows linearly. Okay? So Sam Walton always understood limit the amount of space, and he limited the amount of space in the corporate offices, and he ran one of the largest corporations in the world out of his corporate offices. They didn't move out of that house until after he died. Okay. Sandy Weill, we know who Sandy Weill is. He understood that Travelers was a bureaucracy that was not necessarily servicing its charge. So Travelers became a very bloated bureaucracy where the people were basically paying themselves, country clubs and everything. And when Sandy Weill came in, he understood Price's Law. And he came in and he cut 1/3 to 1/2 the people in the Travelers, did not reduce the bottom line, emptied out the offices, closed down offices entirely, made the company tremendously efficient, and made billions of dollars in the process. I knew people who were Sammy Wild's hair cutters, so to speak. They would go into a division, and he says, John, I played bridge with him up in when I lived in Avon. And he says, John, I says, how do you know which one's to cut? He says, it's real easy, John, it's real easy. And he says, the first thing we do is reduce the size of the space they're allowed to be in. Get rid of the offices, close them down. Aetna closed down the 1 million square feet in Middletown. Why? Price is low. And what's going to happen is that, you know, I studied under a man named Klein, Nobel Prize winner in econometrics. Studied under him directly. I studied under a man named Galbraith. These are names that a lot of people in the economics world will know. Galbraith did the World III study at MIT. And the interesting thing is he did the World III study at MIT in 1974, and every prediction made in the World III study has come to pass. Right on. And what the World III study says is, based upon the growth of bureaucracy and the growth of taxes, we are going to have entire states go bankrupt. I predict Connecticut will go bankrupt in the year 2030, 2031, because the amount of taxes it's going to collect is going to exceed the amount of pension payments it has to pay. And so we have another Detroit brewing. Okay? And oh yeah, the government's going to come in and dewater the thing. So what I'm trying to say to you is that what's the future of Farmington? Oh, I happen to be a graduate of the International Council of Shopping Centers University, also given at the Wharton School. As a matter of fact, I graduated from twice. I predict West Farms Mall is going to close down. Because as an economic retail model, it is failing. And all you have to do is walk through the mall that they have in Manchester. Go there, walk through it. That mall is going to close down. And the only thing that's keeping that, go ahead.
We're getting our 5 minutes.
Close. So what I'm trying to say is the 1928 building, you have to look. In 1982, when I lived here, the entire town hall and police department operated out of this building. How many people lived in town at that time? Now take a look at the amount of square footage of the police department, the amount of square footage of your other offices, the amount of budget and the amount of people that are employed by the town, and compare it to the population. Compare those two numbers and you find out that they're exponentially out of whack. They're not linear, they're exponential. And so therefore, if you build that 1928 building, you are allowing the bureaucracy space to grow. Don't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here with us who would like to speak?
Tim Kelly, 62 Westview. Fantastic job there, Professor. I was a B student, to be honest with you all. But you made some great points. In terms of population, just for those who are interested, in the last 12 years, the population of Farmington has grown 2.9%. Not 2.9% per year, 2.9% in total. But I'll leave the rest of the analysis to my friend here on the left. So I guess the school department is up first today. I believe strongly in Farmington education. I sent my kids here, and I have a lot of respect for the superintendent and the staff that I've gotten to know over the years. I also believe we may have opportunity for significant cost recovery and cost avoidance in the proposed school budget. I probably should have put together a sheet to make it easier to follow along, but pencil's ready, and here we go. First, open choice funding. This program, as most of you know, brings students in from out of district. They are funded at $8K per student. And maybe that was a reasonable amount 25 years ago. But today we spend over $18,000 per pupil in Farmington. So using rough numbers, if you have 150 kids, I know it's not that exact number, times about 10,000 per child, that's $1.5 million. That's 2% of a $75 million education budget. So the superintendent is looking for 3%, obviously, on top of last year. This is something that I think we ought to be working towards. So my question would be, who's working on this and can't be rectified by July 1st fiscal year? Seems like a big issue. I believe adequate funding should follow the child. It's as simple as that. One of the line items in the budget was for public relations. This budget line item is up 50% over 2 years. Now, I think most people are already sold on Farmington schools. And we already passed the new high school referendum twice. So I guess I would have to ask whether that is something worth review this evening. There's another line item called other professional. Anything that says like other miscellaneous, you have to immediately get a little nervous. But I believe it's for legal and consultants. The budget asks for a 23% year-to-year increase. So the plan is to spend basically $30,000 a month in the new year on this line. To me, it seems a little rich. Do we really need that much help? There's another line for audiovisual. It's almost $150,000. Apparently, it's designated for our current high school. It's a curious time to be making this purchase, my view. The first referendum we had for the new high school had designated millions of dollars for FF&E, which included a lot of new AV equipment, as would be appropriate in new facility. Then that project plan got in some cost trouble, and I think it got backed out. But then we wound up doing a second referendum, and of course that was to fund a lot of this stuff back in so we could complete the project as originally designed. All that is well, but I'm just wondering how many times we're going to be asked to pay for the same AV equipment, right? And again, I don't know enough about that specific line item, but hopefully that'll come up a little bit this evening. And I guess in general, I don't think we should invest another bucket of paint in the current facility. One man's view. Big line item and a big topic is natural gas. This is for heating the buildings. The request is for an 11.5% increase. However, natural gas price futures have dropped 57% over the past 6 months. So nobody knows perfectly what's going to happen in the future, of course, but it may be fair to assume that an administration in Washington that wants to get reelected in 2024 is not going to let energy prices go up in a visible manner. Across 7 school buildings, I have to wonder how much can we save by turning down the heat from, say, 72 degrees to 70, or from 70 degrees to 68. Anyone who's had children or teenagers know they naturally run pretty hot. We're out there in hats and scarves, and they're running around in shorts and T-shirts. Electricity, big number. The request is for over 1.1 million. Since most electricity is generated using natural gas, same questions might apply. Another line item in the budget is for gasoline. The budget request is for a 37% increase from last year. However, the price per gallon is 30% lower this year. So I guess the basic question is, where are we going? Got it. Going to wrap up pretty good here. So I don't mean to nitpick, but this, really represents what would maybe be the low-hanging fruit. So now we got to talk about headcount. 2 categories, and quickly. Management personnel. Over the past 6, 8, 10 years, we've added a fair number of management level people, directors, assistant principals, managers, and coordinators. These are all fine professionals, but they don't stand up in front of a class every day. They do tend to require offices. They mostly spend time in meetings, and therefore you always hear the cry from the organization, we need more meeting rooms. It's worth reviewing some of this growth at this point, since we're taking the time to review things. My last point here is on teacher headcount. Last thing you ever want to have to look at, obviously. Previous 12 years, our enrollment has consistently stayed between 3,950 and 4,050 students. It was 11 out of 12 years, 1 year, slight exception. I did a 10-year look back at teacher headcount. So we're facing the 23-24 year. I went back to 2013-14, just for the heck of it. So what I've noticed is we've grown our teacher headcount from 355 FTEs to 391.
Tim?
So we've added 36 headcount. So it's been a slow process of adding 3 or 4 a year, but obviously 36 is a big number when you step back. So we may need to take a look at that. And I thank you for your time. I hope we can make positive progress today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room here with us who would like to address the council? Seeing none. Kat, do we have anyone online?
I do not see any hands raised.
Anyone online who would wish to speak, you could raise your hand at this point in time. If not, we will move on. Thank you. Okay, item D.
I'd like to make a motion to consider to take action on the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 town budget.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Kathy?
So tonight you have your schedule in front of you. We start with the Board of Education, who are here, and then we'll move on to the Registrar of Voters, and then we'll go into my department heads. And usually how the process works is that you'll hear from the Board of Ed, you don't take any action, and then when you go through my departments, again, we go through sections of the budget. Typically, we don't take any action today at all, other than giving some direction and things of that nature.
Okay.
Okay, and the board will come
I
up
could
to...
welcome the Board of Education up to the table here.
I'll be listening upstairs.
Okay. Okay, technology is ready. We're all ready. I'd like to start off by thanking you all for coming in this evening, and thank you for the presentation we had last night. I would like to recognize the fact that you all put that presentation together prior to our setting a target, and it was very understandable to assume in past years we had a target that was 3%, and you actually came in under that number. This year, of course, is proving to be a difficult year with revaluation hitting. And I know you all have heard, as all of we have heard a few times, the impact on homeowners this year, which is why we came in with our 2% target rather than a 3% target. So before I open up to questions from the council here, I was wondering if you all had had a chance to consider that, since we've discussed that publicly.
Yeah, so thank you, and thank you for your attention to our budget. Yeah, so we, at the time that we set our budget, our understanding was that there was going to be a 3% target, and since that time to the time that we're sitting here today, that changed to a 2%. So as we had time to think about this and review the budget, we looked at several areas that we could potentially reduce the budget by, and I can just give you some general ideas. Going across many accounts, 10 or 12 accounts, we could probably bring the budget down around $200,000, going across accounts and bringing them to zero across several accounts. We also have a very healthy insurance reserve, and per policy, we could make reductions there as well. We do have a joint board in town self-insurance policy that outlines what our reserve should look like, and when we're beyond the percentage of where it should be, we have the ability to reduce our budget in a particular year by that amount. And so we've consulted with Joe on the town side, and that's around a $200,000 reduction as well. And then between Chromebooks, major facility projects, as well as new positions that we have proposed in this budget, one was a science position to expand programming at the high school for computer science. It's a very popular area of study for our students, with lots of students on waiting lists. So if we're really trying not to lay anyone off, and so we really looked at new positions that we were proposing. We were also proposing a .1 Latin, a .2 applied art, .7 special education, and a .2 business. The .2 business was coming off ESSER and onto the operating budget. As you know, we're trying to slowly move things from ESSER to the operating budget, because we know that ESSER ARP funding is over in December of 2024, and we wouldn't want that impact all in one year. We also had a 1.0 FTE end user for our technology. You know that we have one-to-one devices, and there's a lot of work associated with that, and we have a lean team in our technology department. But given those new positions, we would put a pause on those for this year. And that would get us to a number with teacher turnover. We've had a few positions since we set the budget that we could also reduce the budget by about $50,000 for teacher turnover and around $20,000 for professional development, which would get us to a 2% increase for the Board of Education's budget.
Great, thank you very much for that, and I appreciate your doing all the hard work. We know this, again, across the board is a challenging year, and through the town as well. We've done everything we can to not expand anything, and in some cases reduce. So I appreciate your. Do you have anything that just shows, do you have any slides or anything you'd like to share with us before we open up to questions?
Sure. The reduction slide. On these slides, we also just show the reductions from my level to the Board of Education, which was around $940,000 in reductions, and this would be another $737 and change thousand to get to a 2%. Mm-hmm. So as you look at this, here were the reductions from when principals and program leaders submitted their budgets. After this team reviews those budgets, we made $587,278 worth of reductions to get to a 347 increase, 3.47% increase. Then we went to the Board of Education, and after their review, there was an additional $357,180 reduction to get to the 2.99% increase. And this next slide gives you an overview of those areas where we would reduce to get to a 2%.
Okay. Great. Okay, thank you. I will open it up to questions from the council now. Go ahead, Rafina.
Thank you very much for doing that. As you know, it's a very interesting budget year. Will any of these cuts that you've mentioned impact programming?
Well, on the 1.0 science, we currently don't have this position. So we took an approach of trying not to cut current positions. So it would just mean that we're not expanding computer science offerings in the coming year. That's what the purpose of that was. There were also some expansion for Latin and applied art. Special education, business was already a .2. It was just in ESSER, not in the operating budget. It was in a grant. The .7 special education, we already had reduced a 1.0 special education position when the board reviewed it, and we did put that on ESSER funding for next year. We may make some adjustments there because this .7, at least 0.5 of it is something that we really don't have a choice with. So we would probably take the 1.0 we put over in ESSER and make some adjustments there to ensure that 0.5 that we're cutting, of the 0.7 we're cutting here, we have that 0.5 position next year. That's for West District, and it's an essential addition, given student need right now, which, is both federal law and state requirements. So we would ensure that that would be covered.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know if now's the right time. Actually, I'll ask a technology question before. I have two small questions. So, from my understanding of previous discussions about the budget, there was a line item in there for like AV and other equipment that we were going to be taking to the new high school. I think, Matt, you had talked about that. That was different?
The object that was referenced is actually AV computer, and it's a software account. The
Okay.
increase for this year is $30,000 from over last year, and that is directly tied to a cybersecurity tool that we're using to cut down on phishing and ransomware attacks.
Okay, but there was another, I don't remember exactly when, I can go through my notes. It was about $350,000 or something like that, that was reserved, and we were going to just earmark that, or I don't know what we do in budget, for use in the high school, not to replace anything that was in the current high school.
Correct. That the $350,000 is in capital. That's for purchase of network equipment and Wi-Fi access points for the new high school.
But that's not going anywhere, we still preserve that, correct?
It's part of the capital.
Okay, so we'll
So
talk
not
about it
for
another
operating.
time. All right, thank
Yep.
you.
Other questions? Johnny?
Yeah, can you give us just a quick overview of ESSER and how it works? Just because from the town side, we had ARPA, it was kind of a one-time, this is what you get, and you have to use it, and there were some rules attached. Is this for the Board of Education, ESSER, is that different grants that come on a yearly basis for so many years? Was it attached to certain items, or were there, thick rules with it, I guess?
That's a good question. So there have been several iterations of the ESSER grant over the past few years. They're really for COVID relief, as you know, from the town side as well. There are some rules associated with it. There are several rules associated with it. When you're looking to do any type of improvement or reimbursable items, you can't use federal funding and ESSER funding, or you can't use federal funding and then apply to the state for reimbursement as well. So somebody might say, why didn't you use ESSER funding for, or why didn't you get reimbursement from the state for the cafeteria project at Irving Robbins that we use capital funding for as well? And the answer would be, well, the state is not going to approve any reimbursement alongside the ESSER funding. So it's kind of like you use one or the other. Aside from that, the plan is something that's publicly accessible online. And so in its original inception, those goals and plans were written. Anytime we want to make an adjustment to that or a shift to that, we have to write into that and receive approval as well for the use of that funding. Additionally, we survey the community every half year or so, seek feedback from our constituents, and discuss where our plan is going for that. And so those are all things that have happened iteratively over the past few years. When you kind of look at buckets for ESSER, they've been used to bolster faculty and staffing, as the superintendent alluded to earlier. It is a dangerous place to go, and you've seen this in several other districts, and I'm sure we'll continue to see this in districts. You hear the term cliff, right? And so if we're continuing to fund faculty and staff through ESSER, and then at the December 2024 that runs out, well, that's a cost that's going to either have to result in layoffs and or drastic increases to our operating budget. And so I think our district has been quite strategic in that, and that's something we were attempting to kind of finalize in doing this year, and we won't quite be able to get there, because at the end of the day, those are then realized costs that come back to our operating budget, or very tough decisions that have to be made. Matt has done a really nice job the same way in technology, where over the past few years, we've offset hundreds of thousands of dollars of costs onto technology, but some of those, we try our best to do one-time purchases through ESSER, because we don't want to end up in a situation where we're bringing so many things back over into the operating budget. But we've gradually, including this year, brought over ongoing software costs, ongoing technology costs, gradually back into the operating budget, as to not realize major swings over the course of those years. But that's another area. We've used them for programmatic studies, again, one-time costs. So we've done several curriculum reviews through ESSER funding, professional development opportunities through ESSER funding. We did a large special education study through our ESSER funding. Those would all be examples of things that help our district improve and grow, but don't result in ongoing costs that need to be realized over time. And so PD would be a bucket, staffing would be a bucket, technology. We've done several facilities upgrades through ESSER when we're able to do so and when that's feasible. In addition, we've also been able to do things like, utilizing a consultant or an architect to help develop plans for things we're asking for through capital or through major projects, and we've tried to offset some of that through ESSER as well, and we will continue to do so. And obviously, with some of the challenges that we'll see this year, that's helped us rethink how we're going to use the remaining fund balance in ESSER to move forward. Is there anything else I can add to that?
No, that was actually very good, especially for people that have not heard about, know what ESSER means, but not really what the overview is. So, no, thank you, and thank you guys for coming in today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Joe?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you to you and your staff, and obviously to Liz and the Board of Ed. For the last 4 years, it seems like every time we think we get moving ahead with something and it looks great, we run into a wall. First with COVID, now with this, and each time we've asked you to help us out in the town, you have done so. So again, thank you very much for doing what you did, and obviously not reducing services that we all move here and expect from the town and from the school, and to provide what you have been for the years.
I had a really short question, which was just similar to what you were describing with your strategy with ESSER. The cuts that you had to make for this year isn't going to put us in a position where you're playing a lot of catch up on next year's budget, where you're taking stuff out of this year and then kicking it down the road.
I think it's not unreasonable to expect, we all know this, right? We go to the grocery store, we go to Walmart, we go to these places, and we notice that everything costs more, right? And we're not immune to that here in the school district as well. Certainly, we're doing our very best. We've zeroed out, our supply lines. We're doing things like following CPI. We were able to cut natural gas earlier because we did monitor that, but at the same time, we know that these things fluctuate based on what's happening around the globe, and those are sometimes things that are hard to predict. So, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that there may be areas, but we'll have to deal with that next year and see what the context is that we're facing. When you look at trimming back and underfunding all those accounts to $200,000, those things may swing one way or another. We've seen that in our costs for building and facility improvements. You all saw that in the air conditioning attempt that we made as well, right? These are realities that we're facing. So, it's quite plausible that we'll see some of that, but we tried our very best to be strategic. And at the end of the day, kids in the classroom are why we do all the things that we do as a board. And so did our very best to make sure that we protected that as much as possible with this request.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ed?
Thanks, CJ. I don't have any additional questions. I just want to thank all of you. Thanks for the presentation last night, and thank you to the Board of Education and the school administration for all your hard work and partnering with us and putting in that extra effort to find a way to get down to the town council's 2% without cutting programming and without cutting any current positions. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, thank you very much. We're all appreciative of the fact that you respond to the needs of our students and you're responding to the needs of our budget situation, putting students first and putting families in this town first. And thank you guys for your efforts in doing that.
Any further questions? I would just like to state for those watching at home and for those who've been following the proceedings, the way the process works is the town council sets the budget. We give the Board of Education a budget. They decide how that money is spent. So there have been different questions at points in time saying, why don't you ask them to do A, B, or C? That's not our purview as a town council. We say, this is the budget of money you have. And over the past years, as we've seen, the Board of Education and the entire staff in the district does a tremendous job of spending that money very wisely, which is why we have such great schools in town. I would like to just reiterate, not just what everyone up here has said, but what we said earlier. We appreciate the fact that you came in this evening prepared with meeting our target, which through reasons hopefully we can correct in the future, we set our target after you set your budget. Doesn't make any sense at all. We're one of the earlier towns to go through this. Hopefully for next year we can correct that so we don't make you all go through a process and then do it all over again. So if there are no other questions, I'd just say thank you, appreciate your coming in. And if we have any questions later, we'll reach out to you.
I should say the Board of Education has the final decision-making authority on where cuts are made, so that's what's on this slide. Just to be clear, these are going to be our recommendations.
Yes.
But I also would like to thank all of you. I see my colleagues right now with very large budget increases, and part of the reason I believe we don't have a very high budget increase that we see in all of our surrounding towns for boards of education is because you have funded us properly over many years. When you underfund, there's always an impact years later, and I think that's where many of the surrounding school districts, really statewide, are facing a situation where maybe they had underfunded over several years and now there's a bubble. So I believe we can do this because we've had many years of collaborative work together and been able to bring forth budgets that really meet the needs of our students, because that is our number one focus, but also be responsive to the taxpayers of Farmington. So thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because one of the things in a year such as this, we can survive through that because we're making decisions that are only a one-off, and we hopefully are correcting them in the next year. So thank you again.
Thank you.
With that, I will welcome Kathy Blonsky back to the table.
If I don't ask any questions,
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You can't do that midway through.
Yeah, I know.
Only made it through half that show.
It's called audible.
Through half that TV show.
Serious. That's pretty funny. I put 8:15, so.
And thank you for the members of the Board of Education who came there this evening. And I would welcome up to the table here the Registrar of Voters.
And if you want to go to your budget book, I will tell you your page. Page 9. Thank you, Kat.
Welcome back, Kat. Yeah, right on it.
And I left at everyone's places that Beth and Ann had given to us. It's a handout, so that's at everyone's spots.
And welcome to our newly elected, a few months ago, registrars. This is your first budget before us, so thank you and welcome.
So since they're new, CJ, usually what the registrars do, I think, is if you guys have any questions on their budget, they presented their budget to us, and Joe and I made a few adjustments to it, which is included in your book. And then usually how it would work, just that the registrars, if you have any questions for them, or if they want to ask you any questions or tell you a little bit about their office, and that's where we are.
Wonderful. Are there any questions before I ask the registrars if they have anything to tell us about? I see none. So, is there anything you'd like us to know? Or anything you'd like to discuss with us? Or any questions you'd like to ask of us?
I guess I would just say that I hope that we don't have an extra referendum this year, because that will be costly. And we, our expenses basically are what they are, preparing for the election and referendum.
Thank you. It is fairly cut and dry, which I'm assuming is why no one up here has any questions. There aren't a lot of
One of the things we did talk about with the registrars, and obviously there could be some changes in some legislation and some various things that could happen, and we've said to the registrars, Joe and I did, that if those types of things do happen, that obviously they would come back to us and we would talk about some of those different things. So, I think there is some influx in the registrar field right now. And
Right. And Ann and I were just at, although virtually, a meeting of the Hartford County Registrar of Voters. So ROVAC does a good job of getting us together, whether it's statewide or quarterly by county. And Secretary Thomas was there. And of course, big part of the conversation was early voting. The Secretary feels very strongly that for this legislation to come forward, she really wants to see funding tied to all of the initiatives. So whatever that looks like and whatever it requires of the municipalities to get up and rolling, she expects that that will be funded. And we don't know exactly what it'll look like. It looks like it could be 10 to 14 days of early voting. And that's going to be consistent across the state. They don't want to get into different timeframes for different municipalities. I don't know if the hours will be dependent upon number of voters. It looks like they're really trying to keep it as standard across the board as possible. So that means additional staffing during those days. We think it's workable, but we'll need to work on the logistics. We have 2 great deputies. Each of us have strong deputies that have been working in this for quite some time, and still in touch with Ed Leary as almost a consultant. So it's been quite a learning curve, but things are going well, and we're ready for the challenge. If that comes this year in early voting, it could be not this year, but the Secretary of State was pretty clear that she would push for, if it doesn't happen this year, that it doesn't happen in 2024 during a presidential election, but that it would go to the 2025.
2025.
Yeah.
So do they feel it may actually go through before November for this year?
Secretary of State said that if it was up to her, the bill must be passed by the legislature by April 15th with funding.
If it were to happen this year, in other words, it needs to be on the earlier side of the
Right.
session rather than later. Because
Okay.
we have a lot of logistics to work out. So.
Sure.
It's not all up to her.
But that would increase funding for our municipality, for all the towns. We'd get that from the state, so we wouldn't actually have to put that in the budget.
That's what the Secretary is recommending.
Okay.
The
And
legislature votes on
it'd be a full 10 to 14 days before the actual voting?
it. It wouldn't be necessarily
Election day?
full days, but
Okay.
an additional 10 days, probably not right up before.
It would not be the day before the election. They made that clear way back. So they really can't expect everyone to be working Monday when there's a Tuesday election.
That's prep
Because
time,
you can't get
yes.
everything ready for the Tuesday election to be at the polls by 5 a.m.
Right.
So we need to stay tuned with the legislature, see what they come up with, and
push for funding.
exactly. I appreciate the fact that the Secretary is pushing for funding on this, because that could be a substantial amount of money, depending how many days and where and the details.
And a good thing to know is our state senator Slapp is on the GAA committee. So I've been talking with him, just, hey, how's it looking? Just so you know, we're trying to kind of mirror what ROVAC is saying, and really it's about funding and then infrastructure too, because the tabulators are very aged and they're aware of that, and we are assured that the co-chairs are in line with that. So.
In that vein, I will ask you to speak with the Secretary, because certain of the proposals, certainly that they wrote about in the paper, would necessitate replacing all of our tabulators. I hope they would plan on funding that
Yes,
as well.
they do. Yes,
So,
that's-
okay.
She
Right.
spoke of that. She wanted to make sure that they were all bought at the same time with replacements at the same time,
Okay,
so that we do not have the mess we have now.
great. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you both.
Got the job at an interesting time.
Very interesting work. The only other thing I would say to the council is, it is not a 15-hour weekend.
Our public hours doesn't necessarily mean,
They don't begin.
Bye, Ann.
Kathy?
Thank you.
Down there.
You know, I'm surprised Ann spoke her mind. It's not like her.
Okay, yeah.
Right here it says we're having dinner now.
Yep, dinner time.
We'll go off schedule a little bit,
Okay,
but let's just get ourselves situated. Maybe say take a 5-minute break.
certainly. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, we're back. We're recording? Okay.
All right, so we're going to move the schedule around a little bit. We're going to start with general administration. It is the yellow tab in the book, and it's pages 1 through 25.
Okay.
Usually what we do at the end, Joey, you would make a motion to tentatively approve pages 1 through 25, and we call it TAs. And then if anyone has any questions on any particular page that they want to come back to at another time, we'll make a note of it, and at the end, if there was a whole list of things that we wanted to come back to, not to not ask questions, but if we wanted to come back to it when we looked at the entire budget.
Okay.
So this is the general administration group of accounts. This includes expenses for the administrative branch of town government and funding for nonprofit organizations that the town supports. So some different things in this account. This account overall is down 0.7%. The office and equipment account in the finance and administration information technology unit has been reduced. The town's computer replacement plan recommends computer replacements each year. This budget reduces the number of computers that will be replaced. So we typically replace X amount. We're not going to replace as many because we had to make reductions. That's what I should probably notice. Almost everything I'm going to note is what we've been reducing out of the budget to get to the 2%, because as you remember from my presentation yesterday, to get to a 2% budget, if we had the same amount of staff and employees with the wages that are all settled and the utilities, I think that the increase would have been, it was 4.2. 4.2. And so now, to get to 2%, obviously, there's reductions throughout the budget. So townwide equipment and current expenses in these accounts are flat or reduced. The contribution to the Farmington Library is 2%. They did ask for more than 2%, so we reduced them down to 2%, so they'd be consistent with everyone else. There is an increase in finance and administration information technology. There's additional monitoring services to assist with the security of town computer systems. This year, we bought a system to help us with some of the technology and security, which is quite expensive, and now we have to pay for it every year. So we felt that it was very important to have that, and I think we spoke about it at the Capitol, just with our 2 technology people who do a wonderful job, but just the overall security of the systems. We need assistance. We need other things to help us out with that. So that's in the budget. That's one of the only additional services throughout the entire budget is that. Townwide contractual service accounts for computer software and support have increased significantly. I'm not sure if it's just because of the land of Zoom now and technology and people working from home much more. We've found just all throughout the budget, any of our programs that deal with any computer software, it doesn't matter what technology it is, their increases are much higher than anyone else. It could be, again, the supply chain, I have no idea, but I think it's more about just the pandemic and things like that. So most of a software that used to go up maybe 2% a year, 3%, it's 8% or 7%. So throughout the budget, that is also being driven upward. One thing that I should note is that in the personnel services account, and you may remember last year, if our contracts are not settled, we take the lump sum of what we anticipate the contracts to be settled in, and we put it in the personnel services account. And so in this budget, you could see that there was a higher level, because last year none of our contracts were settled. Now they're settled, and that number comes way down. It came down 51%, and the reason why it came down is because all those salary increases are all incorporated into everyone's budget. So that's why that number comes way down. So
we are pages 1 through 25. I can answer any specific questions, but it is the administration, it's of the government is in these accounts.
Okay. I will open up to any questions on pages 1 to 25. Anyone has, go ahead, Rafina.
Okay, thank you. I just had just a quick general question. So for people who may be listening at home, and even people who came today, when we're talking about sort of the size of the management personnel and/or the staff in the town of Farmington, I've always thought that it was actually small, given the numbers that we have in town. Can you tell us about how many people we have currently?
For management or just
Just employees and the services that we provide?
Yeah, so we have 130 employees, so it's police, fire, all police, fire, recreation, social services, community, and then finance and administration of the budgeting, the finance, taxes, assessor's office, highway and grounds, parks, Westwood's golf course. So 130 employees, roughly.
Right, but for the number of services that we provide to the town, it's not only just, somebody that's sitting in town hall, waiting for somebody to come in. It's like a huge number of different separate services that we provide. So I just wanted to kind of get your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're a full-service organization, and if you look at, compared to some other towns, we do offer a lot of different services, and, if you look at a smaller town or even bigger town, we have leaf pickup, we offer that service. We have a very big, recreation department. We have a golf course. We offer those types of services. And I would say, and, someone asked me last night, I forgot, that the board is able to put up a chart able to compare different school systems, and they get rankings about where they fit. And I've been asked a lot of times, do we have something like that on the municipal side? Because I'd love to see something like that, because my understanding is I think we run very, very low with employees in comparison to what I see. But because the school has to they have to fill out specific forms and do things a certain way, and it's very uniformed, and it's not like that in the municipalities. So we don't have something like that shows where we rank in comparison. So it's unfortunate, but I would think in my experience, we definitely don't have a ton of employees. We don't, we use people in different ways, and the way we're structured is different too than a lot of the municipalities. And so people have dual jobs, like Russ is the town engineer and the director of public works, where in another town you'd have a town engineer and a director of public works. Kat is the assistant town manager, and she's also the director of personnel, where in another town you'd have a personnel director and that. So I think that we really, in general, we don't have, most towns of our size would have 2 or 3 building inspectors. We have 1 building inspector, and then we have another person who does building and zoning. We join the 2 positions together. So I think that we constantly try to have as small a staff and be the most efficient we can be. I'm always looking to restructure and change up how we do things. So,
thank you for the explanation.
Other questions? Ed?
Thanks. On page 1, Kathy?
yeah.
In the commentary section on page 1. So I noticed we're getting rid of a human resources generalist, and then we're adding a management assistant. So is that management assistant going to take on some of the responsibilities that the human resource generalist was doing, or how's that restructure working?
Yes, so we had hired a human resource generalist who unfortunately didn't really work out, and so we kind of looked and went back out to see. And so what we actually did is now we have a management assistant, and that's Amanda, who is new in my office. And she also, we've merged because our part-time communication person, Diane, left and got a full-time job. So what we did is that Diane's part-time position, Amanda has a background in communications. I think what is her?
She has a master's in public relations.
Public relations. So she has that. So she's taking on the communication aspect and also helping out in the office on the HR part of it. And so we've merged it and kind of restructured how we're doing things.
And you'll see in the town council account that the part-time position has been zeroed out.
Okay.
So that's no longer an item for the communication.
Thank you.
Other questions for Kathy? Seeing none. Thanks for the presentation.
I'd like to make a motion to tentatively agree for pages 1 through 25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
I think Chief Ryan is here. Hi, Chief, how are you?
Welcome, Chief.
Hello, Chief. Well, where's the dog today? Strike 2.
Which one?
That's why you get 3 strikes, Joe. He worked days today, Joe. You know,
Overtime.
yeah, that's what we're about to talk about, right?
All right, so the police department, so pages 31 through 39 is the police. Okay.
We just going to do a 31 through 39, Kathy, or are we going to a couple more?
31 through 30, no, 31, 39, and 40. Yeah, so 39 for 40. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
So the police department's budget is a 3% increase. It's almost entirely on the salaries as what the police department, what that is. There is a couple of things to note. Somewhat disappointed, but it is what it is that one of the things that we did have to make a reduction in is a lot of our seasonal and part-time help. And one of the things that we have reduced is the seasonal help that is funded in the police department. These are the seasonal employees hired during the summer months to patrol the various walking trails and parks throughout the summer. And you probably have seen them if you're out on the Rails to Trails or down in Tunxus Park. Texas Meads, yeah. So we're hoping to bring, it's been I feel, and Chief, it's been a really successful program to have. What happens is they'll patrol the trails, and if there's any issues or different things, then they'll be able to let the police know, and the police can be doing other things. You know, I think it's a nice service level that we offer. It's not going to be disastrous without it, but it is something that I think, again, it's not going to be easy with some of these cuts. Like I said in my presentation, there are reductions in the budget, and this is one of them that we are recommending. The other thing that we've done very, very well, as we've done well with our capital over the last 10 years or so, is that we've done well with our police, with our fleet. And in this budget, typically, we have 3 24-hour vehicles we replace on an annual basis, and we reduced that to 2 instead of 3. This I think would be the first year that we've done this in a very long time. Correct. So again, wouldn't be something that we would get into the habit on, and in tough budget times years and years ago, we did get into the habit of it, and we got ourselves in trouble because our police vehicles were in really terrible condition, and we wound up having to buy a ton of them at the same time. So I think a 1 year not doing 3 and doing 2 is something we could live with, and that's why I recommended doing that. But it's again, I wouldn't suggest that we continue to not replace our police vehicles when we need to. I don't think there was anything else in the police budget. It's very flat, and if there's any questions for the chief, he's here to answer them.
Great.
I have one, too.
Keith?
I had him, hey, Chief, how you doing?
How you doing?
I had in my notes that you were looking for, as far as capital requests, the money for cameras and then for portable radios. And I see that there's 2 line items in our capital slide from last night. Is that include, that's what he was looking for?
Yeah, let me just grab the capital.
Just because the numbers I have on my notes are different, but that.
So in the police department, in the capital for technology improvements, we're going to do, funds will be used to continue to pay for the body cameras and the in-dash cameras. So we have money to do that. And then we did do, I think, for communications.
Yeah, there was 58,000 in there.
Yeah, 58 was the note that I had, but then I see on here
What was that for?
That was for the final. We've done a 5-year program for the replacing the portable radios.
Yep.
And we did 10 a year, so this would be the 5th year for the 58,000 to get all the patrol officers updated on their patrol portable radios.
Okay. So both of those capital, so both those requests that he was looking for are we're getting.
Yes,
Yeah.
what he just said. He asked for other things, but we cut those other things.
No,
out.
I just, yeah, I was badgering everybody for their top capital projects.
Oh,
at the
yeah.
meeting, and I just wanted to,
Oh, okay.
so the
Yep.
two that I had written down were those two, and it looks like
Yeah.
we're getting those.
Correct.
That was my only question.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Obviously, we both know how busy the edges of the river can get, especially during the hot season. Are we implementing other type of patrols with different officers to supplement not having that summer help?
We'll certainly have to get creative. I mean, it's definitely an area of the town that we want to patrol, we want to keep, pristine,
Well, just
for
in
everyone to
safety, I
use.
know,
We have a lot of dog walkers down there, we have a lot of people that go down, and, if you have a hot summer, it gets crowded. Last summer, for some reason, it was very manageable, but we can't tell.
We're not gonna
So
know until we get there.
We'll adjust as we go through, and we'll have to get creative with that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Other questions for the chief? Seeing none, thank you for coming in. I appreciate your getting this budget where we need it to be,
No worries.
and I appreciate all the good work you're doing.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to tentatively agree to pages 31 through 40.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Big Tom is here, our Director of Fire and Rescue Services. This is Tom's first operating budget. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Sir.
So fire is pages 27 through 30. And really, there's not much to talk about in the fire budget. The fire department's increase is 2.4%. It's just basically flat or reduced throughout the accounts. I'm not sure, I don't really have anything really to report on, other than that it is very flat. We are trying to do a little bit of controls over some overtime. We do have a lot of fluctuation of our full-time staff, and when our full-time staff, it's a lot of our full-time firefighters, is a stepping ground to other fire departments, and so we do have some turnover there, and then when we have some turnover, we do have overtime. And so our overtime is something that Tom and I have been working on to try to have some control over that. But other than that, Tom's doing a good job getting a handle on it. We're a different type of fire department. I think it's with, I've mentioned it, we're volunteers, we're paid people, we're volunteer chiefs, we are paid administrator. So I think, what are you, about 7 or 8 months in and getting the lay of the land a little bit, and it's pretty much a flat budget.
So 7 months in, we said, welcome, don't spend any money.
I'm trying.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you for coming in. Do you see anything, you've been here for 7 months and now you're getting a lay of the land. Do you see any bigger expenses coming up in the next couple of years that we should be aware, or deficiencies in how we're running our fire department, or things that could be heavily improved on?
I think the biggest expense is obviously going to be apparatus. And that's, Kathy and Joe are well aware of that. The problem is, and I was talking to somebody today, you're looking at a 3 to 4 year build out just for one apparatus. So if you order it today, you can't expect it till probably 2026, 2027. So that's probably the biggest thing, and that's.
Well, and also the buildings.
Yeah.
The building, we've been kind of kicking the can with the buildings for a while now, and we just had a group meeting with the fire chiefs and trying to say, kind of prioritizing what it is and getting an architect in we have some money from previous capital to kind of get the priorities and of what's important, but boilers, and they have, well, we say a lot, they have space issues in some of these fire departments. I recently took a tour with Tom, and we went to all the fire departments, and, a lot of them there's space issues and different things like that. And it's tough being a volunteer too. It's a lot of volunteer time, and so constantly one of the things, just trying to keep up with our getting volunteers and the training and things like that. So the fire service it's a work in progress.
This is a very unique department, in a good way. So You're very lucky to have the staffing during the day, and you have very dedicated volunteers for at night and the weekends. So Kathy and I are working on it. It's a work in progress, but I think we're putting some dents in it. So.
It's change is hard, and so when you have, you know, your different fire departments and things like that, so, you know, you have a volunteer system, and so you don't run it like you would a full-time paid department. And so I think that we're running as efficiently as we can, but we try to make small changes to see if we can do things better. But like I said, it's, I think Tom with a fresh set of eyes on things and coming from a big department and some different things with apparatus and how much apparatus we have and what we need and things, what kind of apparatus and some of that stuff I think has been very valuable to have Tom's experience on some of that, to just look at some of it, the communication systems, how that all works and what we're buying and what we're looking at. And so I think that's all been very valuable to us.
Great. Other questions?
I actually do have one question for you. Thank you for coming in and for what you do. It was nice to see that we're proposing some additional volunteer firemen for the town, which is nice. And I was just curious to know, we supported some incentives for volunteer firefighters last year. I'm wondering if that's helping in doing recruitment.
It is. It's helping. I get roughly between 3 and 5 inquiries a week for people that want to be volunteers. Unfortunately, you know, people have families, they have full-time jobs, and not everybody can always do it. But I think that, you know, if you're able to pick up a net 2 or 3, possibly 5 people a year, it's a big help. Retaining and recruiting volunteers is a nationwide issue right now. I think Farmington is probably ahead of the game as compared to other surrounding departments. We do a good job here. I think the fact that we treat our volunteers here very, very well as compared to surrounding towns is a big plus. We provide a lot of training for them. The training tower itself is a huge incentive for people. For a layperson, it might not seem that big of a deal, but for people in the fire service, the fact that you can go down there in your own town, your own municipality, and train pretty much whenever you want is a big incentive for a lot of people. And I think that attracts people to stay with the volunteer service here. So,
excellent.
It's a good thing.
Tom, when he started, one of the things I asked him to do, and we looked up as the kind of the incentives and the various things for the volunteers and do a kind of a comparison to other communities like us. And again, like I said before, we run things differently, so it's hard to get apples to apples, but we tried our best. And I think that, like Tom said, that the incentives and things that we offer are probably on the generous side in comparison to other communities of the various things that we try to do. And so, but it's worth it because it's a lot of time and effort for these volunteers to help us out.
And we're grateful for that.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
thank you, Tom, and please pass that on to our firefighters and our volunteers.
I will.
Appreciate their efforts.
Thank you.
And one last question for you, sir. I know for a while we're in the process of replacing turnout gear. Have we completed that process? Still in the middle of it?
So we've completed it. It's been shipped in. We have one prospective firefighter that's going to be hired. I'm going to have to get turnout gear for that person. But other than that, we're pretty much caught up. I tried to make it a point this year to get as much as done as I could because we all kind of saw what was coming with inflation and everything else. So now that we had the money and we were able to do that, we were able to get the majority. We might have 1 or 2 next year, but it's not going to be a big deal to outfit those people. It's so great.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
Hoses are in the capital budget still.
The hoses in the
Yes.
capital, and in the other account, we're doing the communication.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, which they'll be very happy about because that's something we really need to do.
Thank you, Tom, for coming in. Appreciate what you do. We do have a unique fire department, and the connection between our full-time and the volunteers is very important, and it helps us, obviously, in this budget season every year, which is why we're generally very receptive to the equipment you need And I think you've done a good job of trying to keep consistent through the different departments, something we haven't always done in the past, so there could be crossover in that equipment and knowledge and repairs and all that. So thank you with all that. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, have a good evening.
You also. I'd like to make a motion to tentatively agree to pages 27 through 30.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Hello, Russ.
That's a nice color suit on you.
I'll give Brownie
He
points.
hasn't even presented his budget yet, and you're already complimenting
I
it?
just like the color.
Reminds me of mine.
My budget is very weak this year, so I'll take the compliment.
We bought our suits at the same time.
Oh, did you?
We are in Public Works, it's the green tab, and it would be pages 43 through 54. Overall, the Public Works account is down 0.4%. Some things to note, there is a reduction of 2 full-time positions, the building maintenance foreman position in the highway department and the AutoCAD specialist position in the engineering division have both been eliminated. There is no seasonal summer help funded in the highway department. These are the employees that help over the summer, doing a lot of different things to make grounds maintenance tasks. This is, again, something that both of these things is somewhat hard to swallow. I think we'll miss having our seasonal people in the summer, just like we're going to miss our patrol officers. I think some of the things that you'll potentially see is that instead of having the garbage picked up on the trails on Sunday, it'll probably be on a Monday during the working hours. The highway and grounds people won't be doing other things. They'll be picking up some garbage, so a little bit less efficiency on different things. Again, not the end of the world, but something that you may see a little bit of a reduction of that type of service. The other thing is that a Westwood seasonal golf course position has been eliminated. That's I think, is it an eighth-month position? 8th month. Historically, we have 2 Westwood seasonal employees. We're going to have 1, and then if at busy times, when we can spare, we'll probably send one of the highway and grounds people up to the Westwoods. Again, less work than for the highway and grounds to be able to do, but we'll shift people. The reduction of the building maintenance foreman position was one of the things that we have been talking about, and I think I've mentioned it, that we've done some restructuring, and one of the things that we've realized is that the shed we talked about a little bit out there, the shed that we have.
Pavilion.
Pavilion, yes, pavilion. I was thinking of the other name.
What was that name?
I believe he called it a she shed.
I like it.
That's the only thing I could think of. The pavilion. And so we have created a capital projects team, and they work in the highway division, and what they do is if they can repair a roof, it's a carpenter, and do various things like that, instead of building maintenance, where what was occurring is that our building maintenance was calling contractors all the time anyway, so it was like we didn't need to have that second person. So really, we felt it was more efficient to have more of a carpenter type of person. Also, that person has a CDL driver's license, which is able to drive the snowplow too, so we're more efficient that way. So we've kind of did a restructuring. The AutoCAD specialist, again, not going to be easy, but it was a position we did to get down to our 2%. We did have to get to bodies, full-time people, and so that was one of the positions. And this is something that Russ will maybe contract out or have some people in his office do it, but again, something that is not really an easy decision, but we had to meet the target. So those were those were the 3 things, and they were the people. Other than that, if you go through the budget, it's really very flat, or it's reductions. And we haven't talked about it in the other departments, which I obviously should have, is that, again, all the utilities are all up in all the departments too. And that's one of the things that is driving this budget.
It's not as noticeable when everything else has been cut when you look at the bottom line, but I appreciate you mentioning that. questions.
I have one question, but you can go ahead.
No, you can start, please.
Okay. So I know that you've made a lot of cuts, and I thank you and Kathy for doing this, but how will this impact services? Like, are we still going to have leaf pickup? Are we going to be able to salt the roads? Why are you shaking your head?
Might just twitch.
Yes. I appreciated the road was salted yesterday, or, you know, when we had that huge snowstorm, like right around 4 o'clock. I appreciated seeing the trucks on the road because I was the only idiot driving, coming back home from work. But no, just in terms of like going forward, like how will this impact like day-to-day residents? What will they not be seeing that they're used to, if anything?
Truthfully, nothing.
Okay.
The LEAP program still remains the same. Snow plowing will remain the same. As Kathy mentioned, we've restructured a little with the building maintainer and building maintenance. So it really won't impact, the residents. As far as the AutoCAD person in my office, if I have to sub something out, I will. I've been doing more. Our engineer will do more work. Our surveyor will do more drafting. We're not efficient when we're doing it that way. So our applications for grants will still go in. We'll still meet all the needs that we need to meet. It's going to maybe take some more time for that end of it. But none of the cuts will impact the residents.
Okay. Thank you.
Except maybe you'll see potentially more litter on the
Well,
trails,
that's another,
that
yeah,
type of thing.
the summer seasonals and stuff, the river, the parks, our maintenance, meaning trash pickup, is going to be the one thing that we're going to see more of.
Yeah. I wonder if we could just have like, carry in, carry out. You see some of those signs.
We have
in
signs, we have that, all that up. Nobody does it.
Clearly, you can tell how much I trail walk or,
Yeah.
hike and all that stuff.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know.
So that's the one downfall you're going to see with this.
And
know.
probably what could potentially happen, and to Joey's comment with the police, it's not that we're going to let it get to a point if it's atrocious, and same thing with the safety. It's just that you're going to be paying high people to be doing those types of jobs where they should be doing other things, and also it just slows down the work of something else. So if you have a drainage project that you're doing in the summer, but you have such a problem with litter pickup and trails, the people that are they're not going to be able to do that drainage project. They're going to do the litter pickup if it gets to that point. But I do think that we are going to see some reduction, of people should expect that, and it's just not going to be as fast on some of the different things. But to the resident, I don't think that they would notice that. This is our goal overall for this budget, is to keep the cuts as far away from the residents that you possibly could.
Okay, thank you.
One thing, weed whacking along the trail in the parks is going to probably be slow. So you'll see taller grass along the edges. We'll mow the fields, obviously, but that little fine trimming and fine tuning stuff may have to get pushed aside. So that's one other thing.
Okay, thank you.
Invest in a couple goats or something.
Oh, goats.
We just talked about it.
Just did.
Well, there you go. See, the
We
minds
just
think
talked about
alike,
it.
huh?
Might be able to eat the trash too, yeah.
They eat everything.
I don't have a question, but I do want to always say thank you. You always come to us with savings, from the past, from millings to your mechanic for saving us money on replacement of engines and stuff. So I know you and your staff is always looking out for the town to reduce price, reduce cost, and do things efficiently. So thank you, and hopefully eventually one of these days we will get your department up to the staffing that it needs.
Well, there's a statement in the budget that it won't. There's no impact this year. But thank you. I appreciate it. But Kathy and Joe do a lot. They support us. You guys, you all support us. We've worked hard over the years to get to where we're at, and it's a mentality. And we hire people. We've had good luck with a lot of good people, and they buy into our philosophy and what our way of life is and what we expect here. So it really starts with everyone who's involved. So thank you.
No, thank you, and I look forward to meeting the Sherpa with his goats and along the trails.
Other questions for Ed?
Yeah, I just have a very general question about electricity and our electricity rate. Kind of thinking about it a little bit more. We had Mr. Sullivan from Eversource at the business breakfast. Do we just go with the Eversource rate, or do we ever look at other suppliers? Like, so I can give you like an example. Me personally, I have electric heat, so I get pretty impacted when the electric prices go up. And early last year, I locked in a multi-year contract at 10.4 cents. So when Eversource rate went up to 24 cents, I didn't have to worry about that. I'm wondering, do we
Yeah.
do that, or what do we do?
I'll turn this over to Joe. He runs that end for us.
We work with a consultant, and we go out periodically for rates. We do not go with the standard rate that Eversource offers. Right now, we're with Constellation Energy, and we've had a 3-year rate lock with them. That rate lock unfortunately expires in December, first billing period in December of 2023. But we've been enjoying 7.7%, 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour right now.
Oh, great.
We did go out for marketing. There was a dip, probably about a month and a half ago, there was a dip in natural price gases. We felt strongly we should look at marketing. We had looked at marketing in December to try to get ahead of it, and we were getting rates around 19 to 20%. When the natural gas price dipped about 6 weeks ago, we looked at it again. We locked in at just about 12.7%, 12.8%. So and we locked in that for, that was I think that was 2 years that we locked in for. We offered 3 options. The best option actually was to go 1 year. We were offering something like 11% to go 1 year. And I'm sorry, that was the opposite. Actually, it was like 14% to go 1 year. It was like 12% to go 2 years, and it was like 11.8% to go 3 years. So it wasn't much of a difference. So we went to 2 years, just figuring that, let's see what happens 2 years from now. So right now, once it expires in December, we'll jump from 7.7 to just shy of 13%. It's 12.7%.
Okay, you're saying percent, but is that
I'm sorry,
cents per kilowatt hour? Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Percents these days.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that we're shopping around for the best rate, so that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe is always shopping for all our utilities. Sure.
Keith?
I think you've already basically answered this question, Russ, but it's another service expectation question, which is, we talked a bunch about projected roads that'll be getting taken care of in the next year. With the new budget, would you still anticipate that process going along the same schedule?
Right, as long as that number, the bond question gets approved.
As long as the bond question gets approved.
Right.
Okay. And then I saw, and then on your capital, it was the truck that you had said that you badly needed because you had one from 1998, right? That's the one that's being
We have
replaced?
3 1998ers. One's coming offline.
If you have 3, then you have 1, so yeah. That's good.
Yeah, the math isn't working, but we'll
I got
take
you.
it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah,
He
thank
has
you.
MacGyver.
Yeah, we have a MacGyver.
Other questions for Russ?
You gotta do the
Okay, Russ, thank you.
zoning and all that, or you just gonna take care of it? All right.
I'd like to make a
Anything
motion,
to-
tentatively
before
agree,
you're done?
pages 43.
Russ, thank you, I appreciate it. Also, the grants you get us over the years, I do appreciate that. That's certainly a big help when we get to these budgets here. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for keeping it as far away from the community as possible. I will add, for the carry-in and carry-out, anyone going to visit our trails is certainly welcome to bring a bag with them and bring out more than they brought in. So, thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
I'd like to make a motion to tentatively agree to pages 43 to 54.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
I think Nancy Perrin is here.
She is.
Staff, she can introduce who's here with her.
So I have Jeff Porter, our recreation supervisor, and Lori Muchacharo, our supportive services supervisor.
And we are in Community and Recreation Services, the mustard color tab, pages 55 through 65.
Can we choose our colors next year?
No.
No.
So,
Green would seem fitting, I would think.
I know,
but,
I forgot
you know,
Friday. I shouldn't have worn this today.
That's
No, no, it's the week. I was told yesterday.
St. Patrick's Day week. We go for the whole thing.
So 55 through 65 is community and recreational services, and we have a 2.4% increase. Really, everything is very flat. The utilities are up in the buildings and the senior center and things of that nature. But other than that, I think that we're just trying to keep things status quo. Don't have really anything else to report on, but Nancy and her staff are here to answer any kind of questions that you might have.
Okay, questions for Nancy?
Nancy, obviously coming out of the pandemic, has the uptick for more services coming through the door? Or is you're still dealing with sheltered people and going to them?
A little bit of both. We're definitely getting a lot more seniors in need of help, and, you know, Lori's been at least, I'd say 2 to 3 a week, of people who are now starting to utilize services, realizing what they lost in that time period. Still people struggling financially, and mental health is at probably an all-time low. It really is.
Or all-time high?
Or all-time high, one or the other, yeah.
All right. And for the struggling seniors, are they missing out on benefits from town and state, or where's the gap?
It's more that people haven't been utilizing services because they were isolated, and now, after being isolated, hoarding's an issue, mental health's an issue, getting home care, Alzheimer, you know, just a variety of things. We have to go out to do assessments and things quite often. We were just talking about that, one person doing it, so we were talking about ways to support each other.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Nancy?
Thank you, Nancy, for coming down, and nice to meet you. The Westwoods Golf Course, I know that we had a restaurant vendor last year that said they were gonna stick it out through the end of the year. Have we found a replacement, or we have?
Yep, and we will actually get to that part of the budget, but yes, the 2 gentlemen that run Tommy's Place in Bristol have signed contracts with us already, and actually in the midst of applying for the liquor license and everything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Nancy?
How many pickleball questions do you answer a day?
Probably more at the senior center, they answer them, but quite a few.
That's what I get asked
Yeah.
about.
One thing
More
that
than,
I'd just
like,
love to
budget, more
mention,
than
if you don't mind, 2 seconds, because it's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is we've entered into a partnership with New Horizons.
good.
And
is
we
great.
have 4 pickleball courts there in their big room. They just weren't using it.
Cool.
And not only do we provide both senior and recreation programs there, we employ the staff at New Horizons to be our building supervisors. At night, you know, Jeff handles the recreation end of it there. They just help watch. During the day, the senior center, they're actually signing people in and collecting funds for us and everything. And I can't tell you how many people are thrilled just to have a job, and it's a great partnership.
I honestly, you know, get asked more about pickleball courts in town than like the budget or the 1928 or anything.
It's all people care about. It's the
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
When are those courts supposed to show up?
They're doing the water lines and things like that now out there, so we're moving along. We're moving along.
And can we sign up prior to that to learn how to play before a new court show?
Yeah, come to New Horizons on Monday and Wednesday nights.
Monday and Wednesday, New
Jeff, when are we
Horizons.
adding Tuesday or Thursday? And maybe, so in April, yeah.
Okay.
Then you'll be able to come and learn.
That's all
Awesome.
there now. It's Wednesday.
After.
Yeah, pickleball is very, and the other sport that people are very interested in, and we're still doing some research on it, is cricket.
But you need a lot more space for
Yes.
cricket than you do for pickleball.
Right.
Just-
Yeah, it's much easier to address the pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah, then
but-
you'd have got a wicket, the whole thing. It's,
But
Any other questions? No? Nancy, thank you very much.
We've got a few more sections
Well,
of
we
it.
just have to TA this one.
Great, okay.
I started last time, he cut me off.
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to make sure he was all set.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to
Well-
tentatively
Just kidding.
agree to pages 55 to 65.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
So what should we do, recreation? Yeah, 72. The red tab in the back is recreation,
72 to 79.
72 to 79.
Thank you.
So this is our rec fund, which isn't supported by taxpayer dollars, it's supported by user fees. And if you look at the first page on the, it shows the revenues and then the appropriations, and we aim to match. So our total revenues we expect to collect is $818,991, and our appropriations are $991. And each one of these things it's our soccer leagues, our culture and creative, our social programs, our bus trips, and various things. So this is, like I said, it's funded by user fees, and that's what Jeff Porter runs for us.
We were down in, what, 2022, 2023 because of COVID? So we doubled in that?
Which account are you looking at?
For revenues, so it was 463, 512
that was
too.
because of the COVID, right?
Yeah, because clearly the year before was.
So maybe this is,
22 to 23.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at a 7-month.
I'm sorry, 680.
Oh.
One over. My fault.
Yeah, it comes in just a strange order, yeah.
As Jeffrey always reminds me, their revenue comes in February and January when they open registrations for the next year. Their program is kind of booked with, they're not really on our fiscal year, the programs are. Their programs really are on, their programs run different from our fiscal year, so you're always trying to match them up.
Yeah.
But usually, like for example, last summer's programs were actually paid for. Registration and revenue for that came in February of 2022. So right now, we're collecting revenue in 2023 for programs that were due in July and August of 2023, which is our next fiscal year.
Okay.
So until the end of the year, if you look at the projection column, the next column over, you can see that we're actually projecting overall the revenues could be almost $250,000 more than expenditures. 1.249 versus 1,027,000. And then last year, you can see the same thing happen for the actual. They collected almost 1.1 million and spent 900,000.
Got it. Thank you.
so maybe this is the place where we have the cricket. Maybe for $5, you get a league going, because actually I got an email today, you probably all did too, for drop-in basketball. If I could play basketball, I'd be happy to go on a court, but I don't think I'm tall enough. Brutal, for sure, but not tall enough. But I'm, all joking aside, this would be a great opportunity. I know that there are a lot of cricket players in town, and maybe, I don't know, like you just really need like a long sort of pitch, really. And maybe that could be something to do at one of the, like IAR or something on one of the fields there.
Our field space is very limited, but I know that some of the cricket players, they come and do like pickup games, and they come up here at the high school and they play some different games. So we're working on pickleball, and that's we're going to get through that, and then I think we're going to start concentrating on cricket to see where we are for.
Okay. Those games take like 3 days to finish, right? Okay.
Yeah. It's a very fascinating sport, though, but yes, it's very long.
Brian?
I live next to IAR, and I have seen pickup games of cricket over there, which are pretty interesting. Is that not large enough, or do you need a space larger than the IAR field?
It's large enough, but we have other things there at the same time is what's happening.
A real cricket pitch is probably about 5 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about the size of probably 3 full-size soccer fields, if not more.
Wow. I knew it was bigger, but...
So Irving Robbins is not quite large enough for a full cricket pitch.
Mhm.
It's probably large enough for a pickup game for use.
Okay.
And there has to be some adjustments to where the.
Yeah, you have to have the center
specific,
area.
yeah, the mound and everything else, and where the ball lands.
Yep. We've had a group of people come talk to Jeff, I, and Ryan several times.
Yeah.
Future thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely.
But if anybody out there that has 5 acres of land that wants to donate it, the town was.
Joe?
We'll discuss.
Flat,
Yeah.
5 acres.
Very nice.
land.
Nothing on a ledge.
Nothing on, or
Well,
wetlands.
that would make for a very interesting game.
Extreme pickleball, extreme.
Ed?
cricket.
Thanks. Yeah, just wondering, have you noticed increase in usage at the skate park since the new updates have gone in?
Yep, we absolutely have.
Oh, great.
And we actually have a crew that's really working on creating a regular using family that uses it and tries to do activities and everything. They just ran out of although we ended up having nice weather much longer than we thought, but they're going to start doing regular programs during the summer, the few kids, and even have some lessons and things. So we're excited. I think they're going to do a nice job and very well used. We have people coming from different places to skate.
Good to hear.
Have you tried it yet, Ed?
Not yet.
Oh, just one last, I apologize. The summer concert series?
Yep.
Still, were you moving it back up, moving it down? Keeping
We
it-
had so many compliments about the new site because of the fact that we get the shade from the trees and everything.
Mhm.
So we are going to keep them all there except for our first, which is our cooperative concert with New Horizons. So we're going to use the parking lot area just because it's easier for all the wheelchairs that they bring for that event.
And you remind the public where that is?
It is right on the grounds of Staples House, right where Staples House is, right in front of the library.
Great.
But yeah, so many people loved that location.
Plus, it's free advertisement when they're playing.
Absolutely.
As the cars slow down, they can
Beep,
just turn
yeah.
right in.
Yeah, it's part of the concert.
Other questions? Okay.
And we need the TA on that.
I'd like to make a motion to TA pages 72 to 79.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
The next item is the Westwoods Fund. It's the blue tab in the back of the book, and I think it has pages. And again, on the front page of this is the Westwoods Fund. You can see the revenues, the different items at 664, and the appropriations there. If you remember, the full-time employees are paid out of the operating budget. So this is like a program. We were very excited to hear about the new restaurant owner and some different things. So we're hoping to have a better season with the restaurants. And again, I think it's going to be great when the facility has the pickleball and some different things. So we think that we can see a nice marriage between what's going on there. We're upgrading the parking lot too. And so Nancy and I were talking about things for the splash park, maybe ice cream and some different things that could come out of the restaurant. And so those types of things that I think it will help the restaurant and help Westwoods Golf Course too.
Will those hours mirror each other as far as pickleball, golf, and the restaurant? Are they going to be working at the same time? Would the restaurant be off?
Well, no, the restaurant would be open because they're typically open all the daylight hours anyway. So it would actually match very nicely with the restaurant.
Perfect.
Questions?
Just a comment, yes, please, on the ice cream.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, some different things.
Other questions? No?
I'd like to make a motion of TA pages 82 to 83.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
So that's it for Nancy, right? All right, thank you.
Great, thank you for coming
you,
in.
everyone.
Nancy, Lori, Jeffrey, appreciate all you do, particularly everything you did during COVID to keep everybody safe and healthy.
Okay, let's do that one. Yeah, we missed one account, the fire marshal account. That is 26.
One page, 26.
So this is the fire marshal account. It's not flat. It's up 2.6%, but the one item I always like to talk about is the hydrant charges on it, just because it's one of the largest line items in the budget. It's, and you can see here that we pay a hydrant maintenance fee to the various water companies, and we are paying $1,140,000 in that. So that when that account goes up and by a percentage, it's an expensive line item. The rest of the account is, I think, flat, and that's it for the fire marshal's account.
Questions on the fire marshal's account? We certainly can't cut back on fire hydrants, so, Joe.
I'd like to make a motion to TA page 26.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Benefits? Yeah, all right. So, and then, Joe, quick, so if we do benefits now, and then our dinner is coming, should be here soon, so maybe we do benefits, we have dinner, and then we'll hit debt, revenue on the other side of the budget.
Great.
All right, so it's the blue tab, on pages 66 through 67, and I'm gonna turn it over to Joe, and he can run through the benefits account.
Overall, the benefits are up almost 5%, 4.9%. The largest driver is Social Security and pensions, which we see the largest increase at page 66. Social Security, because the wage base has been increased by the by Social Security Administration for next year. And pensions, if you recall, last year you added funds to bring the assumed rate of return down to 6.625%, based on evaluation. And for this current year, or as of July 1, 2022, that added additional $160,000 to this year's contribution. So that basically happened there. Also last year, because everything's on a retrospective basis, the results at the end of June 30th of 2022 were pretty much break even for the pension funds. There wasn't any real gain in investments. There wasn't any gain towards the accrued liability. So the pension number, the contribution number had an increase for next year. Everything else has slight increases to it. It's all based on renewals that we know about at this point. So if there's any questions on any of them, I'm happy to answer those. Actually, I should point out the health insurance. We had a very good renewal this year. We actually, our initial renewal was an actual decrease of 17%. And I was going to take the renewal and run, but my conscience told me I better have Anthem check that, and Anthem checked that, and they said, no, we were wrong. They were wrong. And we actually ended up with just over a 2% increase overall. So
2% is pretty impressive these days, and we can be sure they would have come back to us if you took the 17 somehow.
yeah, well, because I wouldn't have pushed it, but we are self-insured, and there's those renewal numbers we rely on those obviously to fund our self-insurance. So we need to make sure we have enough money to pay claims. And two, we use those same numbers to charge the employees their cost share. So I'd like to give them a break. That would have been a pretty substantial break, and we would have basically ended up short funding our self-insurance fund this year. We did not want to do that, obviously. But you have to give credit to the employees. We've been getting a tremendous amount of employees switching over to, on a voluntary basis. There's no requirement. Kathy's been pushing, and we've had a campaign to go to the high deductible health plan, and we are pretty much at the point, again, on a voluntary basis, where the high deductible health plan is actually our major plan in town. More employees on that right now than are part of the traditional plan. Part of that's because the traditional plan had a 42% increase last year. But again, we've had people moving over to it, and I think this year we're actually going to see an even bigger swing over towards it. We have employees inquiring about it right now. So we're having a good year. So far, we're having a good year this year because of that.
Great.
I think some towns, in different ways, people have done it different ways to get the employees onto the high deductible, but I think that our philosophy worked pretty well, that, the prices on the other side kind of drove people to go onto the high deductible, but doing it as a volunteer basis and giving some incentives and having, and not having a lot of union issues that had come along with forcing people to go along to the high deductible, I think really worked out. And people have come over, like Joe has said, and it saved us money, and it saved the employees money. Now it's a much easier sell, but we now really just try to tell the employees, because it's really not that smart not to go on it, because it's so much more expensive the other way.
It's an HSA, right? It's an HSA, and
It's a high deductible thing with the HSA.
Yeah, it's the same. It mirrors what the schools offer, correct?
Is ours exactly the same?
No, ours is not the same. They're actually a little stingier. We pay. They have a base. I think they're 80/20.
Okay.
And we're at 90/10.
Yeah, that was my main question was going to be on that, and I understand the philosophy in not forcing people onto and wanting to a carrot as opposed to a whip, and I get all that. But it's in general that's a if the entire town was on that type of a plan, it would be a net savings for us, right? I mean, and from a benefits perspective, yeah, anything we could do to, I think people hear the high deductible part and in their head, those types of plans minus the HSA part were really bad deals for people if something really bad happened to them. But with the HSA part, I think that they are a much better deal than people think. I'm sure you guys are doing a great job getting the message out, but whatever we could do to get as many people onto those plans, I think would be advantageous.
Yeah, and the thing, I would say that if in the next, we'd have to, negotiate all of that. That's what part of the problem
Yeah,
is.
sure.
But I think that could be something now, again, we just settled, but in the next round, that would be the time where we actually get it into the contract language, because the unions wouldn't be so much against it, because the majority of the people would be on it, and the people that aren't on it should have been on it anyway. So I think that would be the time where we could potentially get it into the contract where you'd have to go on.
Yeah, I was, having switched to a plan like that myself in the past like 5 or 6 years, I was dubious at first too, but it's
Yeah.
great. The plans are fine, everything's covered and.
What we find is word of mouth is the best way.
Yeah.
And what happens is once you get one person, I'll give you a good example is, when we first went to this, I was the only person in my office, and I didn't push my employees to go to it. One of my employees asked about it, explained it to her, she went on, she loved it. Next thing you know, she signed up. I think I have one person left in my office who's not on it.
Yeah.
And again, it was word of mouth.
And they probably still have a rotary phone too.
Right, exactly. And now, like I said, I think I have one person not on. So it's really the employees themselves, and we're hearing that today. We'll start an open enrollment process at the end of April, and we'll go through May, signing people up for our plan runs July 1. So people will sign up people for July 1. And we're already getting phone calls, and we've already had requests for seminars to go out to the departments and talk to the employees about what the HSA high deductible health plan is all about. So I think we're really getting there. We have about 164 full-time employees, benefited employees. And
Yeah.
I think we're probably going to go over 100 being in the HSA this year.
Is this slightly a off topic? Because I'm sure that I know that the library operates independently of us, but we contribute to their budget. But same conversation we had in a library board meeting where I think there's, don't quote me on specific numbers, but I think it's 26 library employees. And I think there's like 2 of them that are on these plans. And the library is always looking for how to save money as well. So if there's any way to loop them in whenever you do those types of seminars, it'd be great, because I think they could.
Just
really
very
benefit.
briefly on the topic is that we have tried to work with the library in the past to try to, we've had some seminars, and Joe and his staff and Kat have worked with the library, and there had in the past been some reluctance
Yeah.
to move on. So
That's what it seems like when in a conversation I have with them. I think with the new administration and the library coming in, it might be a great time to try to really encourage that.
I have to say reluctance is an understatement.
Listen, I know exactly. I had the same conversation in one of those meetings last year, so I know where it's coming from, but maybe with a new administration.
New administration,
Anyway, without
yeah.
clogging up.
Very good. Any other questions?
One really quick question. So you said the largest driver is Social Security and then pensions, and then you mentioned something about the Social Security and why that was. Can you just repeat what you said?
Yeah, believe it or not, there's a cap on how much Social Security, how much your Social Security you're taxed on. So there's a wage limit. So once you hit a certain wage limit, you no longer pay Social Security.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, we don't have a lot of employees, so if we hit that wage cap is now pretty much, we usually have 10 employees, maybe 15 employees who hit that. And now that wage cap is at a point now where maybe have 1 employee next year. So, and why that's important is the employer share of that. When the employee hits that wage cap, the employer doesn't have to pay for that employee anymore. So you're saving 6.2% on that employee's earnings. So that's going to drop off next year, part of it. And so that hurts us a little bit there. So that's really what it boils down to.
Thank you.
And for the pensions, obviously last year you said we loaded some extra money in there. It benefited us. So by not doing anything this year, how are we looking for the next round?
The contribution has to go up. contribution's going up because, one, because of that lowering of the interest rate, and also because of some, we're going up 350, town itself is going up $339,000 on our contribution next year. So, and again, it's a combination of that lower interest rate, maintaining that lower interest rate that you guys agreed to last year, and then two, also just based on performance of the overall investments in the plan from last year. The liability in the plan has grown slightly. The growth in the investments to offset that liability. There's always a gap. You know, I think we always talk about the idea that there are a few of these, so I'm not going to say you never. Most pension plans are not fully funded. They're funded at a certain level. Nirvana is to get to 80%. 85% funded is really where you want to be on these plans. And what that means is that your liabilities are here and your funding is here. And so you have that gap, and that's where the percentage is funded. So our gap unfortunately grew, one, because we lowered the interest rate assumption, and two, because our investments didn't perform as well as we hoped they would last year. So because of those two factors, in order to close the gap over the next 30 years, our contribution had to go up by $340,000 next year. So that's where we're at. You know, this year, the stock market's, you know, been a roller coaster. So where we're going to be, you know, a year from now talking about this, it's hard to say. Unfortunately, everything boils down to what happens on, you know, where you are at June 30th. It's that snapshot in time. So as you recall, during the pandemic, in January of 2020, our claim that our investments were well on the way to 20% return. The pandemic hit, the stock market tanked, and you know we had a negative at the end at June 30th. It was all negative. So you know, June 30th is the key to everything. Every month when we monitor the reports, January, you know, we had $3 million in investment returns. It was great. February, it was $2.9 million loss. So we're bouncing back and forth. And
Right.
You don't want to bounce back and forth. You want to gain. So.
Got it. Thank you very
Difficult
much.
market right now.
Other questions? Ed?
Yeah, one more quick question on the pension. So you talked about how we're reducing the assumed rate of return from the 6.75% to the 6.625%. I think originally that was a recommendation from the retirement board. Is that correct?
Right. That was
Their request.
That was their
Request.
recommendation last year. And actually, they wanted to do that, and you may recall, I didn't do that. When we came to you a year ago at this time, we kept the 6.75% in there, and I think you people, in doing your budget deliberations, actually added the additional funds in to get the 6.625%. So it was their recommendation, and you went along with it. So.
And the 6.625%, that was like their final recommendation? They didn't have like
No,
2 years out, reduce it again, or?
No, and I'll probably get in trouble with the pension board, and, you know, fortunately, hopefully not the chairperson, but we haven't had a meeting in a while. So and we haven't reviewed the actual valuation, but the board's ultimate goal is to get to 6.5%.
6.5, okay.
That's their ultimate goal. And the goal is to reduce it by 5/8 each year until they got to 6.5, and then to review it at that time. When the valuation came out this year, the actuary actually went in the opposite direction. She brought it back to 6.75, and in her draft report, and I reminded her that it had to go back to 6.625%. So she redid the report based on 6.25, and then she remembered that we should probably go to 6.5, and I said, no, we'll stay at the 6.625. So that's where she settled with her report. So I think we have a meeting in March.
29th, yeah.
So, and the actuary will be there, and I'm sure the pension board will give me their phone.
But we're still maybe slower than some would like, moving towards that 6.5. We're, you know what I mean?
Yes, we are, and as you may recall, in September, we made some substantial readjustments to our asset allocation to go in that direction with the investments themselves. So we are going in that direction, and I think, you know, staying with the 6.65 is not a problem. I don't think we'd like to, it's not going to be a problem. Actually, like I said, the actuary thought we should stay at 6.75.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in town is slowing down everything that we're doing this year, so
Right.
it's one of those things. Sorry for cutting into your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Joe, for the clarity.
Other questions? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion at TA pages 66 and 67.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
So Kat is right on her way back with the food. I guess the building committee meeting is going longer for the high school.
Johnny's not there to.
Because Devin was up there. So we really, I think this would be a good time to break, and she should be back any minute, so why don't we just do that? And then, CJ, the thoughts is that it looks like we will be able to, other than economic development, which Rose will be here tomorrow, and the library, which will be here first thing tomorrow, I think when we come back, we can go through the revenues and finish up the budget, except for those two minor accounts. So I think that we'll have dinner and then run through those, and I think that would be a good spot to stop at. I mean, we could go further, but I mean, I think that would probably be a good spot.
Sounds logical.
At that
Yeah.
time. Okay.
Do we want to do the revenues?
Okay, so we're
Break.
moving to adjourn at 6 o'clock.
Not-
A break,
break.
excuse me, we're moving for a break at 6 o'clock. We are finished our half-hour break. We'll return to session. Kathy, where would you like to go from here?
We actually did not do the refuse budget.
Okay.
We should probably go to that tab, which is the non-tab refuse collection.
Pages 69 through 71. The good news with this account is that there is no rate increase, and our garbage fee will be $268 per household.
Great.
And if you see on that page, you have the revenues equaling the appropriations. And Joe, is there anything in this account that would be of interest?
The first account, the first page, 69, that's the landfill, the transfer station basically that we have. There is a large increase in contractual services, actually falling away with the brush that's collected. It seems it goes in cycles, in years where there's too much brush, we have to pay substantially to remove the brush, but when there's years when there's not a lot of brush for shipping, then we pay less, but we're in one of those cycles where we're paying more. On collection and disposal, one thing I would point out here is on the tip fees, which we're actually seeing a decrease in our tip fees for next year. You may recall, we went to Mira closed and we went to Murphy Road. We have a rate guarantee with them for 5 years. And next year, our rate stays the same as this year. So it's $110 per ton. In addition, our bulky ton rate is actually a substantial decrease. We went to $99 a ton from $118 a ton. So we saw a substantial savings there. And then the good news is we're actually seeing a reduction in tonnage. We're going back to pre-pandemic levels. We were actually going down. We hit a high of over 6,000 back in the early 2010s. And now we're going back. In the pandemic, we went back over 6,000. Now we're going back down again. People are recycling and taking things out of the waste stream, so it's good news for us. And then on the final page, we have our hazardous waste collections. We have the other towns in the area that we do hazardous waste collection. And it's been very successful for us. We can save a lot of money with this program. And we will be having, I believe we have it coming up.
Yeah. It's on, I think, right around the cleanup day time.
Which is
Yeah,
what,
not
April
the same
21?
This year,
Yeah.
this will be the first year, it's not the same day, but
So this is
Same
where we
time
pay,
frame.
this is where we pay for our share of those hazardous waste collection.
Great.
And as Kathy mentioned, the rate will stay the same. What we've been doing is, if you look back on that first page, we have been using fund equity and fund balance to offset some of the costs over the past few years. One is because our fund equity is very large, and we should bring it down somewhat. And so we're trying to keep the rate stable at the same time, using some of our fund equity. So that's pretty much everything.
Okay, questions for Joe?
Just a quick.
Puns, Brian?
No problem, just
No, I said puns.
puns, no.
Go ahead.
Just things are picking up, aren't they? No joke. You asked for it.
Yes. Go ahead.
So just my question is, how's the search going for a future trash recycling solution for us?
State of Connecticut is, I'm going to be a little sarcastic here, they've finally decided to take an interest in this whole problem. So I guess there are some proposals for study committees to study the issue, to try to come up with some solutions. I guess everybody has a different opinion as to what's the best way of getting rid of trash, and we're never going to have 100% recycling. Basically, you get even as good as you think you are doing recycling, there's always contamination, and any little contamination and any little bit of recycling ruins the whole pile. So it's interesting. We never got this from Mirror, but our new Murphy Road contractor, he actually sends us a report every month how much of our trash collected is actually contaminated. So, it's very minuscule. It's not a lot. It's very, very minuscule. But it's interesting to note that as good as you think you're doing, there's always some contamination. But the state basically is there's a bill right now up at the legislature they're considering to study the issue, and again their focus is to discourage people from throwing things out and recycling things, and they want a more robust recycling program. So. And that's probably part of the other problem with here is, we are burying our trash. Murphy Road brings it to Ohio or Indiana or someplace out. They transport it out there, and it goes to a large landfill site where it is buried, and I guess that's a no-no these days. So they're trying to get us to stop doing that. So I think over the next 10 years, I wouldn't say 5, over the next 10 years, you'll see some substantial changes in trash collection. I would probably say that you may even see us not collecting, getting out of the trash business and the state taking it over. Interesting.
So our contract with Murphy is for the next
5 years.
5 years, and that's with the regionalization in the other towns, that we're all part and parcel of it? Or it's
No,
just for the
there's
town
no
of Farmington?
regionalization. Actually, what happened was when Mirror decided, when we were with Mirror, it was regionalization. Basically, we were part of Mirror. And Mirror basically fell apart last year. We were all left on our own, to our own devices, and some of the private contractors out there, Murphy Road, WCPM,
Yep.
they offered to handle people's town's trash for them. So Murphy Road, what they did is they approached a lot of towns and were very aggressive in their cost proposals to towns. So they actually, in essence, regionalized it by basically getting all these towns to sign up with them. So we're part of a large group of towns that did sign up with them in this region, but it wasn't a cooperative effort.
Okay.
Probably the nearest part of the cooperation was, I guess, Russ Arnold. I mean, and this is, basically we're just talking to somebody. Russ was talking to the Public Works Director in Avon, and who happened to at that point be meeting with the people from Murphy Road, and the Public Works Director in Avon said to them, "You should go see the guys in Farmington," and that's how we ended up with Murphy Road. So that's really what it came down to.
Okay. But our rate isn't going to change this year. You said it's standard at 268?
No, the rate that we charge the residents will not change next year. It'll stay at 268. There is a typo in the book here. I think it says 272. It's actually 268. Last year, just to clarify, last year when we first came to you, we proposed 272. Then we signed with Murphy Road, and by the time you set the actual rate itself, we were able to go to 268. So initially we did propose last year at 272, but we actually ended up at 268, and we're going to stay there this year.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none.
I'd like to make a motion at TA pages 69 through 71.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
I think the next item is on debt, which is the orange tab on page 68. And I'll turn it over to Joe to talk about that.
This account does increase next year. It's one of the few accounts that does have a substantial increase. We're looking at a 7.1% increase. This funds all of the town's debt. It includes the 2 leases that we have remaining for the energy conservation and the streetlight acquisition. Both of them, energy conservation has a ways to go. Streetlight acquisition, I think, actually ends a year and a half from now, so you're seeing the end of that one. It also includes the Clean Water Fund. We have 3 loans for the upgrade of the treatment plant. So you see the payments there for those 3 loans. Those are fixed at 2%. They're through the state of Connecticut. And the portion of those loans actually are paid for by the people who use it, the large users. Avon, Burlington, Canton, and Yukon all pay a portion of that debt service also. And there is a revenue line we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. And then it's the existing debt on the long-term bonded debt that we have. Included in here is the 2022 bond issue for the $40 million, of which a portion of it went for the high school project, and the overwhelming majority of it went for the high school project. So that's in here, plus all our existing debt. We don't have anything substantial dropping off for next year. 2 years out we do, but next year we're pretty much status quo. Also in here is an interest payment on another planned debt issuance. I'm planning to go to the market in June. I was hoping to go in July or August. I was trying to push out the next debt issue into July or August. But the good weather has caused the high school project to move along a lot quicker than we thought it would. So we're paying out a little bit more than we thought we would at this point. So we need to do an issue sooner than we thought we would have to, or hoped that we would have to. So we'll be doing an issue in June, and I did include in here only the interest payment. What we're going to do is we're going to defer the principal payment to after July 1st. Normally what would happen is if we issued in June, we would have to do the interest in 2 interest payments and 1 principal payment next year. But in talking with our financial advisor, we agreed that pushing out the principal payment for 15 days would not be a problem for the market. So we're going to push out even though we're going to issue in June. We'll close in June. We'll issue in May, close in June. The first principal payment will be due in July of the following year, so you're going to miss a year of principal payments. But you will still have to make 2 interest payments next year, and that's included in here. We're estimating that to be in the around a little over $600,000 in interest payments for that project, and that's where the part of that increase comes from for next year. The $30 million will mostly be for the high school. There will be a couple of smaller projects that will be included in that, but it's predominantly $28 million, I think. Slightly less than $28 million will be for the high school.
Okay, questions for Joe on the debt? Okay, seeing none.
I'd like to make a motion at TA page number 68.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Revenues, Joe? And that's under summaries, and the beginning of the book, the red tab, general fund revenue account. And it doesn't have a page number on it. Joel, you?
Okay. I guess I'm just going over the non-tax revenues, right? Is that what it says?
Right.
Yeah, it's the non-tax revenue. So I actually start with the property tax, but not the first item. On the I'll just briefly go over the categories. The category starts property taxes, starting delinquent taxes down to telecommunication tax. Those are the they're all taxes, but they're either collection of delinquent taxes, interest and fees on delinquent taxes, the supplemental motor vehicle taxes, and also the telecommunication tax. That actually was, in prior years, was listed as a grant under state and federal grants. Our auditors have pointed out that that's not really a grant. We should put it up under property taxes. They do when they do the audit. So I decided to go along with them, and I pushed it up there. That whole category is up 8.14%, 114,000 $114,000, and that's primarily the supplemental motor vehicle, a little bit in the interest and lien fees, and a little in the decrease in the delinquent taxes, and then also moving in that telecommunications tax revenue into that also brings it up. Licenses and permits is up 23%, and that's all building fees. We've been having a really good experience with building fees over the past 4 years. We thought it would slow down during the pandemic, and just the opposite happened. It went crazy, and we have not seen a reduction in it. Well, we have seen some reduction, but not to the extent that we thought we would see. So feel pretty confident in the number being, as long as things keep going the way they're going. What's the nice thing about it is it's not relying just on residential building. It's all kinds of building that's taking place, all kinds of home improvements, commercial building. So we're seeing a wide variety of things taking place there. Fines and penalties is down slightly. That's just there's court fines and then the dog charges. Interest earnings, this is a big increase. As you can see, 365% increase. Rates are up, and we're seeing it the benefit of it this year. So we feel, this year we're going to collect close to $1 million in interest income, and next year we feel that it's a little bit of a gamble, especially after reading today, or especially after Silicon Valley Bank last week. The forecast was that rates would continue to climb at least through the midsummer, end of the summer. We probably wouldn't see any rate decreases from the Fed until next December, January timeframe. So we felt confident that increasing our interest revenue, that we would continue to get good returns on our investments. And now we're starting to hear some rumblings that they might see an actual rate decrease in June. I don't think that's going to happen unless more banks fail. But at the same time, that's our one. I wouldn't want to say it's a gamble number, but that's one of those ones where we are pushing it a little bit. State and federal taxes. This is based on. State and federal grants. This is based on the governor's estimates. So most of it's pretty flat. The one big area of increase is the equalized cost sharing. He is proposing changes to the equalized cost sharing grant, and because of that, we are projecting we will receive more money next year. I would also point out that he's proposing that to consolidate a lot of these grants into one grant. So in future years, you may see this look a lot different. You may see one grant line instead of all these little grant lines. And I would warn you, not for next year, but in the future, when they start to do that, that's a troubling sign, because it's a lot easier to cut one grant than it is to cut 10 grants. So in the future, that may be an indication of things to come. Charges for services is flat. It's actually a slight reduction, 0.1%. And this is where we are seeing some slowdown in the economy. Land sales, which would translate into real estate conveyance tax, also into the town clerk fees. We're seeing a slowdown. We're seeing not a lot. The recordings are down, and the transactions are down. Also in this area, we're starting to see some fallout with the tower, our tower rentals. We rent space on cell towers, or we get rental on some of the cell towers in town. And with the consolidation and mergers that have taken place, and some of the new technology, we're starting to see some pushback from some of the cell tower companies that they don't want to pay their rents anymore. They want to negotiate. They're going to leave. So we're starting to see some significant changes in that area. And and again, that's another one for the future. Police services is up because that's our contribution. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. That's the West Farms Mall. police officers, and West Farms Mall pays us for a police officer over there, plus their benefits, plus a half of another officer. And that's that number there. That's also, Burlington pays us for dispatch services, and that's also in there. So overall, and that account is flat. Then on the next page, other revenue. I mentioned before, we have the clean water loans in Burlington, Avon, Canton, and Yukon Health Center do pay us. We levy an assessment on them, and that's that first line called other assessments. Next year's pegged at $703,963. That will actually go down every year because the loans are going down every year. And obviously, the loans have declining interest. So as the amount we pay in loans repayments, the assessment will also go down. But you can see they are paying $700,000 of the annual principal and interest on those loans. And then the Westwood's contribution. This is, as Kathy mentioned before, the town absorbed in the maintenance aspect of the Westwoods Golf Course into the town budget. And what we did is we charged the Westwoods Golf Course for that maintenance. So this is their payment to the town for those maintenance services. And then the final one is the fund equity position appropriation. This is what Kathy proposed and mentioned last night. We're proposing taking $1.2 million out of fund equity to help balance this budget out.
Okay, questions for Joe? Rafina?
So about the fund equity, I've been meaning to ask, the $1.2 million, we have 26 million in the
We have
fund?
over 19 million in there.
19,
You're right.
okay.
It equates
So this-
to about 16.4% of our operating revenues.
Okay, and the 1.2 million, quick math?
It'll equate to it'll bring it down to about 15.4%.
Okay.
On the proposed budget.
Okay.
On Kathy's recommended budget. So in other words, if you took the 122, 9,025, should have just got rid of that. I don't know why we didn't do that. Should have just made it a flat 122. Our fund balance will equal 15.4% of that.
Okay, thank you.
And what's the recommended range?
Recommended range is, depending upon who you talk to, it's between 12 to 20%. I don't want to say we settled. We set a target for keep it at 15%. Ideally, you'd love to get to 20%, but we thought to keep it at 15% as a good compromise. So I felt, we've always gotten comments that our fund balance is low compared to other AAAs. So we wanted to get it up into a 15% range, where a lot of other AAAs in Connecticut are. We can never match the AAAs in other parts of the country. A lot of them are outrageous, 30%, 35%. We're not going to match that. But we felt that if we can get it up, up above 15, we should be fine with that. So that's our intention was to keep it there, or keep it at 15% for next year.
Thank you.
Other questions for Joe? Seeing none, thank you, Joe.
How do you want me to word this one, since there's no page without a number?
Revenues.
Revenues.
Just call it revenue.
Non-tax revenue.
Non-tax revenue.
Gotcha. I'd like to make a motion at TA, the page of non-tax revenue.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
So, other than economic development and the library,
Mhm.
we've basically have gone through the town side of the budget. What our plan would be for tomorrow would be, I think, to have a discussion about the revaluation, showing some of the numbers, going through the tax rate, having discussion about that, and putting that up on the board. And Joe has worked on some different things. I think it's important to at least have for the public to show some of the impact on the cars. And so we have some examples of that to show how the overall tax rate is. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, Joe, when we're looking at the impact on the cars, like we use that average household, do we have an average car tax?
Actually, we don't. And what I would prefer to show you is some actual examples. We have 50. We pulled 50 assessments, 50 actual properties in town. And you're all on it.
We were told.
But you're not going to tell us
No
whose
names.
car is whose, right?
It's all public knowledge.
We know you have the tassels you
Joe,
said.
let it fly.
No, you better, oh.
So the comment was simple. When they got to me, they're like, oh, no, you're done. You have one old car and your house went way up.
That's what we figured out. Some of these people, you got to buy new cars.
Yeah, Johnny.
Council doesn't pay enough.
Johnny, spend 70 grand to save $1 grand. Come on.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I'll show you some examples. Like I said, we have 50 examples. These are actual examples of the impact in town and how it looks without their cars, how it looks with the cars, and again, it's all based on Kathy's budget, recommended budget, and the recommended mill rate of that's included the 24.38 mills that's in her budget. So
Okay.
you can take a look at that and.
We'd have the tax and budget worksheet. We'd put
Right.
that up on
Yep.
the board and show some different numbers for you. You know, we can just program them in. And again, whatever you guys want to do with that. And then depending on where you go, how we usually work it is that you take each side of you figure out where you are comfortable with the tax rate, and then you'll make motions on the expenditures area of it to set the budget. And then just so you all remember the process, is that you would be doing that, and then in April, and it's actually early in April, that becomes your town council proposed budget. You'd have a public hearing on that, and that would be the proposed budget. You still have opportunities at that time to make changes after the public hearing. Typically, you have not done that, council has not done that, but there is an opportunity to do that. And at that point, basically, you would be sending the town council budget, any of the items that you want to have for bonding. Right now, what I've proposed is the roads in the 1928 building. That would go, and then you'd have the warning, you'd set everything, and the resolutions would be for that April meeting. And from that period until the time that you have the referendum, we're in the blackout period, and that would be, you'd have the annual town meeting, and then you'd have the referendum. So,
Any questions, anyone on the process and for tomorrow? So tomorrow we get the budget up on the big screen, and we'll look at the numbers, see where we set right now, discuss some potential changes, the Board of Education, of course, being one of them, and see where that leaves us and go from there.
right, exactly.
Okay, and all this after, first, we're going to hear from the library and economic development, and then we'll start having those. Very good.
So, one last question. Kathy from the Board of Ed had mentioned that they still have to have the Board of Ed approve it. When does that, their reduction to 2, because right now their budget's at 2.99. When will that happen, and will we have that all in the time of this, or?
No, usually what typically happens is that the council sets the financial number for the Board of Education. The board can do whatever they choose to. Those are Kathy's recommendations. It's never done on time, so whatever number you pick, that's going to be the number, and the board's going to either take Kathy's recommendations or the group's recommendations, and that's what it will be.
Okay.
So to clarify, I mean, she gave us a number today that's 2%, and as Kathy was saying, she said these are the things she thought she would change. If we approved a budget with a 2% increase from the Board of Education, the board itself could decide to do something different, but that is the budget that it is. So they have to work within the parameters of this is their budget. So, but she was just showing us how she could make this work. They could decide to make it work in a totally different way, but they have to make it work. And just to be clear, because I know Johnny said something in jest, we're not paid anything. We don't have a salary. This is a volunteer group up here.
We don't get paid for this?
It's easy to double and triple zero.
Yes, it is, yes.
Waiting for my balloon payment.
Nothing from nothing is nothing. So, okay, anything else?
No, that is it for this evening.
Well, okay, I'll leave you with a quote before we go. This from Alan Greenspan. Unless you're willing to compromise, society cannot work together.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the March 15th, 2023 Town Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I see no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6:58, we are adjourned.